I think that's where this tournament ends for Indonesia. I think that's where this tournament ends for Indonesia. Well, hello there and welcome to DNQ Football. We are back speaking about one of my favourite tournaments, actually, and a tournament that's not spoken about if you are outside of Asia, certainly, the AFF Championship, or AFF Mitsubishi Electric Cup. Ryan, are you looking forward to this tournament?
Yes, yeah, I am, mate. Do you know what? I was gonna cut across you then, mate. When you were like, "This is one of my favourite tournaments," I was like, "The bloke says that about every tournament."
Well, it's because I just love these tournaments, to be honest. You
No,
look
I
at
know.
it, you've got teams ranked from 190 down to 96. This is prime DNQ territory for an
Yeah, it's class.
international
It's
tournament.
class. It's class, mate. It's huge in that region as well, isn't it? So we've got the, as you said, the AFF Championship, the AFF Mitsubishi Electric Cup. The you'll know all this already, but I was just jotting a few notes down and just humour me for half a second, will you?
Mm,
It's the 2022/2023
mhm.
Asian Football Federation Championship. And you'll know this, of course, but ASEAN is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. I just
Yeah.
thought it was funny. Just thought it was funny. Running from the 20th of December to the 16th of January, mate. 10 teams, two groups of five, as we know. In those groups, the top two teams in each go through to play what is a double-legged semi-final.
Hmm.
The winners of those semi-finals then go through to what is a double-legged final. Sounds like an obvious question, but where do you want to start with this one?
I would start with Group A. And I would
Oh, he's good.
start with the only side that we've seen compete in this tournament so far. Brunei knocked out Timor-Leste across two legs. The stats in both those games, do check them out because they paint quite the picture, and it's not one
Mm.
of the ultimate scoreline. But Brunei, nonetheless, they did progress. We did a preview of those games. They find themselves in Group A alongside Cambodia, Indonesia, Philippines and Thailand. Of course, Thailand, the current holders of
Yes.
this championship. Unfortunately for Brunei, I do think that they will probably crash and burn at this one. I think their best
Oh,
chance.
that's a brutal start. They'll probably crash and burn.
I think they will. It's no disrespect to them. They've done very well to get here. I just think that
Yep.
they'll try hard against a side like Cambodia, maybe pick up a point there. But across the other sides, this is a tough group. Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand will all be
Yeah.
looking to reach at least the semi-finals. And I think it will be a similar picture for Brunei and Cambodia. I think they'll be trying to beat each other, and then I think they'll just be trying to get points out of the other sides. And then those
Mm.
three teams, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand. Indonesia, runners up last time. Love being runners up of this tournament. Thailand, the holders. Philippines, I don't know. I've seen a lot of stuff say they're on the way up. I think they're stuttering a little bit. Personally, I
Oh,
could be proved wrong. I think Indonesia and Thailand will be the two sides to watch out for in this group, and they are my picks to get out of the group stages. What about you?
interesting, interesting. Yes, it's a great show, mate. But yeah, so Brunei are there. It's only their second ever appearance at the AFF. It's the first time that they've appeared in the competition for 26 years. I think they will be fighting out with Cambodia. To be honest, mate, I completely agree with what you said
Mm.
about Group A. We've got Thailand. They're going to be a favourite to win. They've actually won three out of the last four AFFs. Philippines, to be honest, I'm not too sure. From an Indonesia point of view,
Mm.
we have got current ranking 152. They've jumped up from 191 in the last 6 years. A few kind of interesting notes. I was looking at some of the pre-tournament stuff from an Indonesia point of view, and Shin Tae-yong, their coach,
Mm.
he's essentially what the whole thing is. They like how he has shown a willingness to kind of trust in their crop of starlets, players that we've spoken about before, like Egi Milana, Witan Sulaiman,
Mm.
Pratama Arhan. So I think my picks, mate, Indonesia to go through from Group A and to be joined by Thailand, who will be hunting for their fourth win out of the last five AFFs.
And
Should we go to Group
out of those
B?
two
Go on, pal.
sides,
Go
though,
on,
who
go
do
on.
you think is going to top the group if you had to? Because obviously that affects who's who in the semi-final.
Yeah, very true. I think Indonesia will top the group.
Big. I'm going to go with Thailand to
Oh,
top the
it's huge.
group.
I've just thrown it out there.
I like
I
it.
mean,
We agree on
yeah,
the same teams, but I think slightly different order. I think Thailand will
nice.
still have enough to top it. But going into Group B, you've got the second lowest ranked side, Laos. They are at
Yes.
187 going into this, and then you have a sort of fluttering of teams around the mid 150s with Malaysia 146, Myanmar at 158, and then Singapore 160 before you reach the highest ranked team at this tournament,
Yeah.
Vietnam, a side on
Mm.
the up in their kind of golden generation, but didn't really impress as much as we were hoping for at the last AFF Championship, where of course Thailand were the winners. I think that Vietnam, I think we both say, will probably win this group. Would you agree? On
Yes, mate,
paper?
I'd agree. Yeah, mate, I'd fully agree. As you said, they were tipped as one of the favourites. Sorry, for the last edition. They crashed out in the semis. They've had a good year, mate. They've had a
Yeah.
really good year. Played 8, won 5. They beat Dortmund recently. I saw
Yes,
it
they did. Yeah. Yeah.
doing a bit of a thing over Twitter. They beat Dortmund in a friendly recently. To be honest, Dortmund will have had a lot of players at the World Cup, but I mean, still that's quite an interesting thing to shout about. The tournament for this tournament for Vietnam, it's the last and final tournament for their long-serving coach Park Hang-seo. So there's a collective kind of drive from that Vietnam squad to go out on a high for him as kind of they kind of see him as like this they're kind of their Korean mentor.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting to see how they do. And then just they've got a great side, really highest ranked team. A few players for them just to keep tabs on. Nguyen Quang Duc in midfield, he broke through at the last tournament, and Nguyen Quang Hai is a forward, and he recently in the summer he transferred and he now plays for a team called Pau, which is in French Ligue 2. He's got 10 goals in 45 caps for Vietnam. He's not started the season that well in Ligue 2 in France, but that's quite a high profile
That's
transfer. So,
big time.
sorry, you're impressed with that knowledge, aren't you?
I enjoyed it, and I'm actually impressed. I'm impressed with being in the Ligue 2 as well. It's fantastic to see players from this region getting a chance in some of the European big
Yeah.
leagues.
I thought I'd throw out some of my French there as well, mate. I hope you don't mind.
Ligue 2, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. We'll cut out your pronunciation of Nguyen, which is obviously win, but it's fine. We'll come back to it.
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's
Yeah.
fine. The
I mean,
editing.
I always, mate, no, leave it in, mate. I always apologise about my poor,
No,
poor
it's fine.
pronunciation and stuff. You know, we're
It's
just
fine.
two English football fans, mate. Just throwing it all out there. Anyway,
Very well.
so Vietnam in Group B, mate. I agree. I think they'll win the group. Talk me through the rest of it, throw out some thoughts, and see what comes up.
It's tough to call this group. I think Laos. I think Laos are an entertaining team, and I think they'll give some of the sides a good go. I think they'll test Myanmar. I think they'll test Singapore. I think that looking at it really just kind of on the surface without doing too much kind of tactical deep dive, I think that it will probably go in ranking order a little bit. I think that Malaysia, probably the second strongest side in Group B. I think they'll be fought hard with by Singapore, who really have a team coming up with the Fandies of this world and players like that, you know, really good players and solid players. And so I think it'll be a bit of a Singapore-Malaysia shootout. The winner of that game, I think, will reach the semi-finals along with Vietnam. And I'd probably just say maybe one tournament too early for Singapore. I think Malaysia have got a few more established heads, so I'm going to say Malaysia second.
That's mad actually, because you've it's almost like you're reading my couple of bullet points that I jotted down before hopping on, mate. Because you know that the Malaysia Singapore is the last group game in Group B, or it's and that's a derby game between those two teams. And I also think it'll come down to that game, and I think that Malaysia will edge that. So we'll see. But yeah, no, I agree, mate. I agree. So I think Vietnam to top, Malaysia second, and then eases its way into the semi-finals. Before we go on to that, do you want to talk about how the format of this one, how it's kind of changed, and how that might impact some stuff? Because there's a lot more travelling in this one. Whereas
There is.
it's kind of weird,
true.
isn't it? The 2021 was held in 2021 because of COVID delays, and then it was for the first time ever. It was like a centralised location, whereas normally you have stadiums and grounds across the whole of that ASEAN region.
Yeah, you do, absolutely. It was obviously in a central location because of COVID. It was delayed because of COVID. But this time we returned to the previous format, the 2018 format, for example.
Yeah, nice.
11 venues, incredible, the largest of which being the Baku Jalil in Malaysia, of course. But really, apart from Brunei, who I believe play their games in Malaysia as well because their stadium isn't up to standard. Every side's got home grounds, and how will the
really?
travelling impact some of these games? Obviously, it's still quite a close-knit region. Geographically, it's not as spread out as other tournaments without a centralised location, but it will be really interesting to see if home advantage plays to the hands, because you have got certain sides like Malaysia with far bigger home crowds available to attend games. Baku Jula, for example, 87,000 plus can go in that stadium. That is probably a more hostile environment than, say, the Myanmar stadium. So it will be interesting to see how that plays a part in this one for sure.
I agree, mate. I agree. But so we picked the 4 that we think are going to go through to the semis. How do we see the semis? Do we want to we want to touch on this video? We don't want to say that for another day. We'll go there, right? We'll do a semi-final and then a final prediction, and
we'll
then
go all the way.
Ultimately go on record and with some more terrible predictions. I'm sure.
Some more.
Yeah. Some more. Well, they're ranked. Ooh. Okay, so the way that you would have it, you've got Thailand coming out in. Let's just go with you.
Yeah, sure.
So you've got Thailand winning Group A, and that means that they would then play Malaysia.
Yeah.
Across 2 legs, and then you'd have Vietnam taking on Indonesia. That's tough. That's tough. So how would you see? Talk me through that.
I think that Thailand would beat Malaysia across 2 legs. I think that Vietnam would beat Indonesia across 2 legs as well.
So the Garuda, the search for the elusive first title goes on. That's the prediction.
I think that's where this tournament ends for Indonesia. I think that's where this tournament ends for Indonesia. I think that across 2 legs, there's to be honest, if Indonesia do come second in the group and they do face Vietnam and they beat them, absolutely fair play, but you have to look at that from a Vietnam perspective. The way they're on the rise, the way that the team's playing, how they did in AFC World Cup qualification.
Yeah.
There is almost no excuse for them to not reach at least the final.
Vietnam drew with Japan this year. The same Japan that have done extremely well in the World Cup. They're a great team.
There's just no excuse for Indonesia.
They should win it, really, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
They should win it. I mean, we're sort of jumping the kind of the little format that I've just laid out there, but I think Vietnam should win it, mate. Is that how you then see it? How your semi-finals and final match up?
In my opinion, yes, it goes on world rankings, and yes, we don't know in-depth stuff about the team. So feel free to correct us in the comments if you disagree with us for any reason. But there's no reason why this shouldn't be Thailand, multiple winners and holders, seasoned pros of this tournament, and Vietnam, probably the best team in the region, going head-to-head across those 2 legs in that final. And I think Thailand are going to do it again.
A
curveball!
I did not see that. Mate, for me, I'd go Vietnam. I think Vietnam to win this one, mate. They've had a great year, and I think that across the December, I love that this tournament just has no respect for the Christmas period. Absolutely not. No, we're gonna throw a tournament in there. I think Vietnam will win it, pal. So that's how I see it. How I see it going. I've not even done how my groups and then semi-final and final then all came. I think Vietnam are going to win it. That's all that people need to know.
But we both think that it's going to be a Thailand-Vietnam final, and we predict Indonesia and Malaysia to fall at the semi-final stage. But how do you see this one going? And I wonder how wrong we've got this tournament. Indonesia have surprised me in the past with their victories against Curacao, and maybe they'll continue that positive trend going into this tournament. But we will be doing match previews, we'll be doing match reviews, and we may even give you a cheeky little watch-along there as well, if we feel like we want to.
Sorry.
Cannot wait for this tournament. Drop a comment who you think is going to win. Don't forget to dislike this video because you hate Ryan. And as ever, subscribe. We'll see you next time.